Good evening, Flyers fans. Welcome back to Clear the Ice here on the It's a Wrap Sports Network with your boy, Manny B on the call. Man, it's been a minute since I've done a standalone Clear the Ice. It's good to be here with you tonight on this Saturday early evening. For those of you settle in to watch some USA Britain World Baseball Classic, I'd be remiss to remind you that we had a hockey game earlier today, for a few minutes ago, and the Flyers, in a back-and-forth affair between the Pittsburgh Penguins, found a way to win 4-3 post-trade deadline. Were they buyers? Were they sellers? We'll get into that a little bit later in this show, but the Flyers held on. They came back. All the score, I don't know how you can come back in the first period, but they did. A game that featured all the scoring in this affair occurred in the first period, but the Flyers and Dan Vladar had enough as they held on, forcing overtime, getting through the overtime, and then winning in the shootout today, 4-3 over the Pittsburgh Penguins. Alex Bump making his NHL debut, a debut that he will never forget. Well, you never forget your debut, but equally, when you can add your first goal to your NHL debut, it's double the fun. So 4-3 is the final. I guess the question I have for Flyers fans out there worldwide tonight is any of this meaningful to you? As we sit here in, mid-March, coming into mid-March, do you believe that this team can find a way into the playoffs? And more importantly, can you believe in this team's ability to do any damage in the playoffs? Or are they better served now sort of maneuvering that draft pick, maneuvering that draft position here for 25 or for 26, 27? Again, we'll get into the trade deadline stuff here in a minute at the end of this show because I am going to throw my 2 cents worth in on that. But, a win is a win is a win, as they say. But I don't know. Is this more beneficial for the Flyers to lose games like this at this point in the season? Or is there anybody out there holding hope that the Flyers could actually do something this season? But 4-3 is your final. In the shootout, the Flyers win the game. Let's get on to the game action. Some of the off-the-ice stuff. The Flyers inactives tonight were Nick Seeler and Travis Konechny. For the Penguins, Malkin, Hayes, Graves, Shorblum, and Sovolkio was also they were inactives for the Penguins. In net for the Flyers tonight, Dan Vladar doing his best as he has all season long. Faced 23 shots, made 20 saves, finishes with an 8.7 save percentage. It was a wonky first period as all the goals were scored in that period, but he held it down. He clamped it down. Skinner only faced 15 shots in this game, made 12 saves, and finishes with an 800 or .800 save percentage for the Penguins in the loss in overtime. Let's get on to some of the action in this hockey game. Again, we'll do fast and furious through the first period. The Flyers were down early in this game as the Penguins struck first at the 3-minute mark on the power play. Thomas Novak is 13th from Brazeau and Kovoykin, their 14th and 4th assists, respectively, to make the score 1-0. Owen Tippett, though, 54 seconds later, his 20th goal of the year, silent 20 goals. I know that 20 goals is not necessarily what it used to be anymore in the NHL. It used to be something really special. It really sort of kind of, pushed you apart from a lot of players. I still hold a lot of regard for the 20-goal plateau. And I got to say, Owen Tippett has done it the most quietly I've seen a player ever do it in NHL history, as he gets his 20th tonight from Zegras, his 30th, and York, his 19th, to make it 1-1. Actually, no, I'm sorry. There were some goals scored in the second period, too. For some odd reason, I thought I knew there was goals scored past that. That would be your final or your score heading into the first intermission, 1-1. I don't know what I was saying all that. For the first period, the Flyers were outshot desperately 8-2 in that period. They made one of those shots count. Heading into the second, it was the Penguins striking again at the 3:38 mark. It was Raquel's 12th to make it 2-1. But here come the Flyers, and here comes Alex Bump as the future is here. With his first goal of the year, his first goal of his career on his NHL debut at the 4:46 mark from Geberkin. To make it 2-2. And then the Penguins would push back ahead. Erik Karlsson, his 6th at 5:45 to make it 3-2 Pittsburgh. And then at the 10:03 mark, another future star of this hockey team, Denver Barkey, his 3rd from Michkov and Cates to tie it up at 3-3. That would be your score heading into the second intermission. Flyers did a little bit better in that period with the shots. They outshot Pittsburgh 8-7 in the second. In the third, no scoring. The shots would finish 4 apiece for that period. In the overtime, no goals. And in the shootout, the only goal scored, there was 2 goals scored in the shootout. The winner was by Trevor Zegras to make it the win for the Flyers. So Flyers get the win tonight. A character win from a team that has really, I don't know. Do they have much to play for at this particular moment in time? I'm not sure. But a character win, but does it work against them? Does it work against them at some point or at this point of the season to win games like this when, again, we're going to get into the trade deadline here in a second. Great game tonight for the Flyers. Yeah. Again, Mike, I hear you, man. I hear you in principle, but what the hell, man? What are we doing? What are we doing? Management obviously is not all in on the season, right? The Flyers weren't buyers at this trade deadline, and they weren't really sellers either. They made a few very low-level moves. So they weren't buyers or sellers. They were on the fence, as Danny B has been pretty much sitting this entire time as the GM of this hockey team. We went on and on the other night on the final word. Unless Danny B is ready to pull that trade or make that deal, that franchise-altering one, the one that's going to take a lot of stones to do, then, this is the type of stuff we're going to be stuck with. And this is just not good enough. It really isn't. Again, 4-3 overtime winner against the Penguins, great. But what is the end state here? What is the big picture of this hockey team for this season? I'm not even talking beyond. Like this season, 25-26. They weren't buyers and they weren't sellers. They were fence riders. Obviously, management's telling you and me they're not really interested in the playoffs, right? They're interested in winning a Stanley Cup. Well, how are we doing that? How are we going about that? Because Flyers did not make any significant moves. And again, we'll go over the trades. But yeah, nice win, sure. But for what? For what? What the hell is it for? So that we have a lower draft pick at this point? Because we have a lower draft pick? I don't get it. Nice win in a shootout in Pittsburgh for the Fly Guys. Thank you, Dave, for checking in. It was a nice win. Again, but for what? For who and for what was this win for? But, yeah, 4-3 is your final. Make sure you're tuned in tomorrow. Here's our schedule. There will be no final word tomorrow. I just want to put that out there. I will be on the road sometime in the midday of the day, and I will not be on the air tomorrow night. But Philly AM Sports will be at 9 o'clock, as they will have you covered for your Sunday. And here is Clear the Ice for next week. Big four-game week. This is pretty season altering right here. This is going to tell you a little bit, a lot more than what you're going to need to know about the Flyers' chances this year by the end of next week. By the end of next week, we should have a pretty good idea where the Flyers are headed in 25-26. Rangers, Capitals, Wild, and Blue Jackets. Interesting matchups. Mike will have you Monday. I got you Wednesday on a twofer. It'll be a combination final word, Clear the Ice. And then Mike will be back on Thursday for the Wild. I will have you on Saturday for the Blue Jackets. So there you have the rest of there's your week in review there's your week upcoming in Clear the Ice. So let's get on to the business of the trade deadline. So here we go. Significant pieces moved for the Flyers at this trade deadline, 0. Nothing significant. Bobby Brink was traded to the Minnesota Wild for David Urek, a journeyman. Let's call it what he is, a journeyman young defenseman who was taken 6th overall in the Cutter Gauthier draft year, is now working on his 3rd team in as many years. So the Flyers are hoping Urek, with his right-handed defensive ability, and that's what he is, he's a right-handed shot, will hopefully resurrect his career and resurrect the potential that he once showed to be the 6th overall pick in his draft year here with the Flyers. Giving up Bobby Brink, which, Bobby Brink is just a victim of circumstance here. He's just a victim of numbers, man. We got a crap ton of wingers, and Bobby Brink probably had the most value. So Flyers were able to move off from him. No big loss there for Bobby Brink. I'm not really upset about it. A lot of untapped potential. Maybe he finds that with a contender in the Minnesota Wild. I don't know, but if you ask me, tweener for a tweener, right? We got David Urich, who's going to be playing to start out his time in Philadelphia in Lehigh Valley. Maybe finds his way up to the Flyers at some point. Maybe he's more in the picture for 26, 27. But again, a right-handed defenseman who's got some high potential has yet to meet that potential. Whatever. Again, defense obviously is a problem on this hockey team. I got you. Yeah, we don't have the best. But we still have not addressed the center position. Another trade deadline gone without addressing any centers. How long are they trying to rewrite hockey? Are the Flyers attempting to, change the game here? They're trying to make the center position irrelevant? Because it's going to be a long time. That experiment's going to take a while, and it's not going to work out well for them. Nick Deslauriers, here's the bombshell trade of the day. Nick Deslauriers traded to the Carolina Hurricanes for a 7th-round draft pick. Again, are we buyers or are we sellers? And then a bunch of minor leaguers came and went. Massimo Rizzo, Alexis Gendron were sent from the Lehigh Valley Phantoms essentially to the Providence Bruins in exchange for Brett Harrison and Jackson Edward. And the big name that did not move was Rasmus Ristolainen. Again, Danny B shooting down rumors of that, saying he had no intentions of trading Risto. Why would you want to trade Risto? An off-injured defenseman who signed a terrible contract when he first came here, who still has another year left on that contract, whose value is as high as it will ever be based on what he did with Team Finland in the Olympics. Why would you try to trade a guy like that? I agree, Danny B. I'm in your corner, man. I mean, come on. I need an op-ed, man. I don't need an op-ed. I need to sit down with Danny B behind closed doors. No cameras, no microphones, no recording devices. I want to know the plan. What is the plan for this team? How is he going about the rebuild? Because we've talked about it. Free agency is not going to be what they thought it was. Right? Heading into this summer, you had some big-time names. Obviously, Connor McDavid was the headlining name, though he never would have made it to free agency. But he was on there, along with Jack Eichel, two very big names, headlining the centerman position heading into free agency. The NHL threw apparently the Flyers a curveball by extending or increasing the cap in season back in October. Eichel then signs an 8-year contract with the Vegas Knights, and of course McDavid a 2-year extension out there in Edmonton, removing two of the best players, centers-wise, that the Flyers could have maybe made a run at this offseason. The remaining players, there's one or two out there, but the remaining centers, the remaining forwards are all upwards in the mid to upper 30s. Don't fit the Flyers timeline. So free agency, even though the Flyers will enter the summer with like the 4th most money to spend in the NHL, they have no way to spend it. There's no way. There is nothing to spend it on, and free agency is not going to be the way they're going to fix this problem here, especially this summer. The drafting has been questionable at this point. The whole Cutter Gauthier thing. Cutter Gauthier is going to score 40 goals this year. Let that sink in. He's going to score 40 goals for Anaheim this year, maybe more. Whoever was in charge of that, I want to know the real story around that whole thing too. But that person needs to be fired. Whoever was in charge of the Cutter Gauthier thing. Jet Lachenko, I'm closer to playing for the Flyers than Jet Lachenko is at this point in his career. Seemingly a bust at 13 overall, like I've predicted since the night he was drafted. Matvei Michkov, the drama continues with that. Porter Martone, whose college season is coming down the finish line. God help the Flyers if Porter Martone's not wearing orange and black by April. God help them. God help the Flyers if they are telling him to go back to college for another year. God help the Flyers for that. So Porter Martone could be in play for next year as a right wing possibility. Talking about Alex Bump here getting the opportunity this game. Denver Barkey essentially working his way now into the fray of being a regular member of this rotation. Jack Nesbitt's about 2 years away. There's a couple of other fringe players that we've talked about over and over again on the Final Word, but nobody moves the needle, man. There's nothing out there franchise altering. We had that guy apparently, and then he stopped liking the Flyers, and we had to trade him for Jamie Drysdale. But other than that, man, there ain't nothing franchise for this team. So the only way for this thing to kind of the franchise altering trade. Travis Konechny, Matt V. Michkov. These are names that need to be profiled, high, visible names for potential trades this summer. If the Flyers don't pull a trade involving a TK or a Michkov, that's the only way for an instant hit or an instant kick in the ass to this rebuild to make one of those trades. This dinking and dunking, this fence riding, this building through the draft that's apparently not working because they can't draft, not being able to use free agency for the first time in a long time, not because of the Flyers' fault, but because of in terms of the Flyers have the money for the first time forever, but they misread the room on what the NHL was going to do with the salary cap, and they extended it in season. They missed the boat on that. There's no other way to get through this other than making that big trade. Or we continue down this path of this type of season next year, the year after. Because until that trade is made, until Danny B grabs his stones and says, I'm going all in, I'm trading TK. I'm trading TK and Michkov in the same package or whatever. We're here, and this is what we are, this team. And do the Flyers faithful have patience for this? Because my patience is running out. I'm getting a little tired of this. Now, I wasn't expecting them to move heaven and earth at the trade deadline. The trade deadline is not set up for that, right? It's pretty point blank what the trade deadline is. It's for the teams that feel like they have an opportunity to win a Stanley Cup this year to reinforce their team. So you're only able to do business with about, 15 teams, 16 teams that feel like they have that chance. So half the league is out of this. They're not even involved, right? So trying to pull off a big Matt B. Michkov TK-like trade to a trade deadline deal doesn't make any sense for the Flyers because they won't get max value for guys like that. So I wasn't really necessarily asking for something like this. I wanted them to be sellers. I wanted them to move people off. Risto needed to be gone. Oliver Bonk is allegedly scratching at the surface to get onto this team. So we don't trade Ristolainen to make room for him? What's going to happen next year when we're at the trade deadline? And God help the fact, and here's sending out a blessing now to Ristolainen. Stay healthy for at least 365 more days till we get back to next year's trade deadline. Because at that point, they're going to have to move you because you got an expiring contract. But God help the Flyers if he goes down at some point, again, with another hangnail that requires him to be on IR for 7 weeks, and they can't move off of him, and then he walks away at the end of the season, and they get nothing for him. But, the big thing, and Danny B intimated at this, that I wasn't going to trade off from Risto because there were offers allegedly fielded for him, but I had a set price that I wasn't coming down off of. That makes no sense to me, man. Risto is holding up a spot on this hockey team for an Oliver Bonk type player. He doesn't fit the Flyers timeline. Risto does. He's not going to be here beyond next year. Why in the hell are you so steadfast in holding out for max value for Rasmus Ristolainen? Because next year, you're not going to be like that. You're going to take whatever some team offers you for him next year, because next year you have to get rid of him. So why are we playing Mr. Hypocrite this year? Ristolainen, whatever you get in return from him, you also get cap relief, because somebody else would take over that contract for one more year. And you open a spot for an Oliver Bonk to make this roster. I don't get the rationale here. Risto doesn't fit the timeline. TK doesn't fit the timeline. Sean Couturier doesn't fit the timeline. Players like that don't fit the timeline of this rebuild, but we're going to hold on to them like they're gold. So were they buyers? Were they sellers? I honestly don't know what they were. They didn't buy in my eye, and they didn't sell in my eye either. They were fence riders. And I didn't know that was an option at the trade deadline. Oh, man. Maddie, let's go. All right, Ryan. Stupid Comcast spectacle. Why are you blaming Comcast? I don't blame Comcast. I blame Danny B and Keith Jones. Is the honeymoon over? Is it time for pitchforks and torches down there at the arena? Are we done with this propaganda that they're spewing? What the hell is the plan to rebuild this hockey team? Is it riding the fence? Is it somehow holding on hope that Denver Barkey is going to break out for a 45-goal score season, that Alex Bump's a 35-goal scorer, and Matvey Michkov's been playing possum, and he's going to accelerate his career to a 60-goal scorer and become the face of the franchise? Is that the plan? I don't know. Somebody tell me what the plan is. Because when you weren't buyers, I'm okay with that, them not being 100% okay with them not being buyers. 100%. They weren't in a buyer position. They're not a legitimate Stanley Cup contender. I didn't want them to be buyers. I wanted them to be sellers. But what the hell were they? Nick Delorier, Bobby Brink, and a couple minor leaguers? That's what you sold? Oh, man. But they need to sell the team, I mean. Well, again, why? Why are we blaming them? Dan Hilfery ain't making the decisions, right? He's not the one making the decisions. I get it. I get it. I understand why. You want to get that hometown flavor thing going again, but I think that ship has sailed. This is the 21st century now. It's the era of companies. I'm not. Comcast is the least of my issues. You know what? It's the least of my problems. I don't know, man. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around the plan. Did you hear Bros on WIP a couple nights ago? I do not listen to WIP. I do not listen to Brody. Bros. I listen to them sometimes on the internet, but no, I did not hear them. Again, it's a rebuild. I was on board with it just like everybody else was. I jumped on the train just like everybody else. It needed to be done. Maybe someone should have told me what the actual rebuild was going to consist of. We're not going to be good enough to make the playoffs, but we're not going to be good enough or bad enough to get a top 5 draft pick. Is that the rebuild? Is that the plan? We're not going to be good enough to make the playoffs, and we're going to be not bad enough to get a top 5 draft pick. I don't know, man. And we're going to misread the room with the NHL in terms of the way they ran their salary cap, miss out on any kind of high-profile player that does fit the timeline of this team. And what is this team's continuous aversion to centermen? I've never seen anything like it. They don't want to go after a center. They have a problem with signing competent centermen. We have the worst collection. I think we only have like 3 or maybe 2 true centers on the roster. The rest of them are converted left wings and right wings that are playing center. I've never seen anything like this. Never understand. I just don't understand it. I don't understand it. Great victory. Again, Joe, for what? For who and for what was this victory for? But yeah, 4-3 Flyers winning overtime. I'm going to go back watch the baseball game while my dog is barking. I hope you guys enjoyed this little show, and we did discuss some trade deadline stuff. What is it all for? And were the Flyers the sellers or buyers? I don't know. I don't know what they were. But make sure you're back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for the what's that little show they do? AM in the PM. Sorry. AM Philly AM Sports Show. There you go. Here on the It's a Wrap Sports Network. I will talk to you guys again, me personally, on Wednesday, as I will be back doing my thing. So I won't see you guys again until Wednesday. But until we talk again on Wednesday, I'm going to remind you, here's the schedule of the Clear the Ice for the rest of this week. I will see you on Wednesday for a twofer for the final word and my Clear the Ice Capitals show. But that's it for me tonight. You guys have a great rest of your weekend. Flyers win 4-3 in overtime. For who? For what? You guys take care. I'm out of here.